Let's go straight to our correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, who is live for us at Capitol Hill. So, Kimberly, he promised Americans a long speech, and that is what they got. It was 2 hours long, officially the longest ever State of Union speech. There was a big focus on the economy. He described it as roaring like never before. The mood in the room was boisterous. There was a lot of clapping and chants of USA. But the real test, Kimberly, will be what Americans at home make of this speech.
That's right. And there was so much in this speech. It seemed like the U.S. president attempted to get a little bit of everything in there, trying to really boost his poll numbers, which we know are sagging right now at some of the lowest points that they have been in his presidency so far in this second term. And so I think that's why we saw a number of things in this speech. As you point out, he started this off talking about winning. And very early on in the speech, he addressed the American men's hockey team and their gold medal, and really sort of talked about that success and how that is also translated into successes for the American people. But when he did acknowledge that there are still some problems that occur, what we seemed to see from the U.S. president was him not taking responsibility for that, but instead blaming the opposition Democrats. At one point, he said that he believed that when it came to the affordability crisis, he said, Democrats, you caused that problem. But the problem is that Donald Trump's been in office now for 1 year, and it's really difficult to continue blaming the previous administration 1 year into your own administration. And it seemed that things kind of escalated from there when the other big area where the U.S. president is polling low is on his immigration policies. That's when things really got sort of fiery in the chamber. At one point, the president was even shouting back and forth with some Democratic members, saying that they should be ashamed of themselves for not supporting his policies, particularly when it comes to his immigration crackdown. So to answer your question about the American people and how this will be received, this was an opportunity to unite Americans, but it seemed like the divisions among Democrats and Republicans were more pronounced than ever.
And Kimberly, when it comes to his foreign policy, many people watching the speech will have also been scrutinizing what he had to say. Let me just play you a soundbite of what he said about Iran, and then I'll come back to you.
They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America. After Midnight Hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue, starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again, and are at this moment again pursuing their sinister ambitions. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen.
So, Kimberly, coming back to you, Trump continuing to take a tough line on Tehran. And this is, of course, crucial because this is just days before another round of negotiations on its nuclear program. What did you make of what he had to say?
This is certainly an ominous moment for those watching this speech, given the fact that the U.S. president made very clear that he said his preference was to solve things with diplomacy, but he also said that he would never allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. What I can give you is a little context that prior to the president's State of the Union address, on Capitol Hill was the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and we know that he was briefing the top lawmakers, the leadership known as the Gang of Eight in both the Democrat and Republican parties in the House and the Senate, on Iran. The fact that there was that very important briefing in advance of the U.S. president making the case that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and adding to the fact that there is one of the largest military buildups of the U.S. sort of aircraft carrier strike groups, destroyers, aircraft. It's a very ominous sign. And I think that a lot of Americans will be disturbed to hear that, given the fact that we know from polling data that most Americans do not want to see the United States embroiled in another foreign conflict. And we should also point out that this is exactly the opposite of what the U.S. president promised on the campaign trail. He said that he was coming into office to end wars, but the military buildup and his arguments in the State of the Union certainly will not have Americans feeling comfortable with what he had to say.
Okay. A lot to digest. Thank you for that. Kimberly Halkett, our White House correspondent. So, as I said earlier, Trump did devote much of the first hour of his speech to the economy, repeatedly insisting it is roaring and that rising costs are no longer a problem for Americans.
I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. It is indeed a turnaround for the ages. The Biden administration and its allies in Congress gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%.